Welcome back to Tech News. Today, Windows 11 24H2 crashes 24% less according to Microsoft. But that's like saying your PC only self-destructs on the weekends. Big Tech's age verification, pushed by the UK's Online Safety Act, demands your ID to protect kids, yet teens get around it almost immediately, while you're stuck proving your age to watch cat videos. Meanwhile, Visa and Mastercard, you know, those greedy, self-righteous wannabe dictators, are forcing game stores to ditch naughty games because some keyboard warriors cried about them. This is going to be a fun one. Let's jump in. Great news! Microsoft has declared Windows 11 24H2 the most reliable release of Windows yet, boasting a whopping 24% drop in blue screen of death incidents compared to Windows 10, because nothing says reliable like reducing crashes from once a week to 3 times a month. I mean, congrats on the progress, I guess, but it sounds kind of like a toddler learning to walk without face planting every other step. It's an improvement, but let's kind of pump the brakes a bit, shall we? A recent blog post by a Microsoft senior program manager said that we're proud to share that Windows 11 24H2 is our most reliable version of Windows yet, adding, compared to Windows 10 22H2, failure rates for unexpected restarts have dropped by 24%. These improvements reflect deep collaboration across engineering, design, and user research teams, and a commitment to making Windows more resilient for everyone. Microsoft has made many changes to the BSOD system in Windows 11. Many of you have already heard the redesign of the blue screen of death by essentially replacing it with the black screen of death. But what you might not have known is that the new black screen of death also is simpler and quicker at creating crash dumps. So it turns out it's more than just a color change. This means that the new BSOD won't be on the screen for as long as the old one. Microsoft says that they have reduced the amount of time that Windows takes to create a crash dump from 40 seconds to 2 seconds. This means that when your Windows 11 PC does crash, it'll reboot faster. I guess 38 seconds faster. So wait. Is the 24% reduction in the frequency of blue screens? I mean, black screens or whatever. Or the amount of time it takes to recover from those? I don't know. Personally, I haven't had any problems with 24H2, but many people have. Lots of people based on the comments that I've heard at least. So, call me a little skeptical here. I mean, we all know that Windows has a solid history of stability. Does anyone remember Windows Vista? You know, the OS that turned high-end PCs into expensive paperweights. Or what about Windows 8, which hid the start menu kind of like it was in the witness protection program? Now, 24H2 promises fewer BSODs, but is that really the bar? I mean, hey, your computer explodes less often, and when it does, you'll lose 24% less data. Maybe we should upgrade to typewriters. I don't know. Microsoft report claims that it's the most stable version of Windows ever based on, well, their own metrics, of course. It's essentially like, trust us, bro. I mean, AI enhancements and UI tweaks sound really fancy, but then we get the privacy-violating recall feature that's basically a screenshot stalker. And let's not forget the hardware requirements that left millions of perfectly good PCs in the scrap bin, because nothing screams reliability like obsolescing everyone's hardware. But maybe that's how they're improving reliability, because ultimately, if you force everyone to buy new computers instead of upgrading their old ones, then you're probably going to slightly improve reliability with all that new hardware. But here's the thing, if 24H2 is so rock solid, then why are so many people complaining about stability problems? I mean, a 24% reduction in system crashes is great, but that's like saying your old roof only leaks 76% of the time. Now, I guess that is an improvement, marginally, at least. In the end, though, I typically don't experience BSODs unless there's a problem. Under normal use, BSODs are kind of rare. So I guess if the rarity is improved by 24%, then that's a good thing. But ultimately, though, I just saw the headline and thought it was a really funny story. And turns out it was. But here's to hoping, though, that 24H2 doesn't turn into another footnote in Microsoft's long history of sticking their foot in their mouth. Are you still running Windows 11 unactivated because the license just costs too much? Then you should check out today's sponsor, VIP SCD Key, where you can get a valid Windows 11 license for around $20. Stop dealing with that stupid watermark and actually be able to change your desktop background with a valid license for Windows 11. Just go to the link in the description below and pick up a valid Windows 11 license key. During checkout, use the code CYBERCPU for a 25% discount. Once you have your key, go to your activation settings in Windows 11 and click the link that says Change Product Key. Enter the product key you just purchased and hit Activate. Now you don't have to deal with that stupid watermark. And check out the description for deals on not just Windows, but Office too. Now, on with the video. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, I wish I could give big tech more of my personal information, then guess what? You're in luck, because coming to a website near you is age verification, the new scam that will allow tech companies to steal your personal data under the guise of protecting children. First off, I want to state this right now at the very beginning, just so there's no confusion here. I do not support children having access to adult content. But with that said, it's impossible to implement age verification on the internet. In fact, any attempt to do so will only lead to making it harder and more complicated for adults to use the internet. It will not stop children from having access to adult content. Let me repeat that, just in case I wasn't clear. It will not stop a single child from having access to adult content. It's literally nothing more than digital virtue signaling at the expense of your personal data. But that doesn't mean big tech isn't going to gleefully implement it. In yet another boneheaded move by the UK government, the Online Safety Act, which was passed in 2023, but went into effect on July 25th, 2025, requires websites and social media to use age verification to make sure users are over 18 years old. Now, if this only affected the UK, then I would just chuckle and move on with my day. But unfortunately, it doesn't, because ultimately, this is a wet dream for big tech. So of course they plan on implementing it everywhere. YouTube, for instance, is implementing AI to determine whether accounts are over 18. And we all know how well YouTube's AI works. So this essentially means that everyone who wants to view age-restricted content is going to have to prove, either through biometric personal data in the form of a selfie, a government-issued ID, or their banking information, that they're over 18 years of age. And of course, YouTube is only doing this to protect children. They're definitely not doing this in order to increase the value of their ad spots by proving that they're being viewed by real people with verifiable demographics. No, of course not. I'm sure this isn't going to go bad either, with one of these companies storing your personal information and that information being stolen at some point. Because ultimately, we can trust companies that have repeatedly lied to us and violated our privacy over and over again without restraint. Since this law has already taken effect in the UK, children have already figured out how to get around it on platforms like Discord and Reddit. They're simply using a photo mode in the game Death Stranding, using a digital representation of Norman Reedus. And yes, at some point, these platforms are going to realize that the majority of their UK users are Daryl from The Walking Dead, and it will force them to violate our privacy even further in the name of age verification. Ultimately, these laws are targeting the wrong people, but that seems to be kind of a pattern these days. New laws seem to be created to make it harder for people to violate existing laws rather than just enforcing those existing laws. Internet age verification is no different. The only people that will follow these laws are adults. Children will just find ways around them until one day YouTube wants a copy of your passport in order to watch a video on how to bake a casserole. I mean, here's the thing. It's not big tech's responsibility to protect children from adult content. That's literally why children have parents. Just because some parents suck at being parents shouldn't mean that the entire internet has to give up doxable information just to try to make things more safe. Because ultimately, it not only won't make the internet safer for children, but it will make the internet less safe for adults who are forced to hand over their personal data to watch a video on how to, install Windows 11 on unsupported hardware. But with that said, in other news, payment processors, those digital toll booths skimming their cut from every transaction you make, have apparently morphed into self-appointed morality police of the internet. This is honestly infuriatingly laughable that companies like Visa and Mastercard and others who are no longer content by just raking in fees now think they can flex their corporate muscles to bully game stores into yanking titles because some random activist on social media thinks that the game is problematic. But seriously, the absurdity kind of burns. A game with maybe a spicy character design or some edgy storylines gets targeted by a handful of perpetually offended keyboard warriors. Instead of just not buying the game, they demand the game store remove the game so that no one can play it. I mean, when the game store rightfully tells them to pound sand, they complain to the payment processor for the game store itself, and instead of that payment processor completely ignoring them like they should be doing, they threaten to cut off stores like Steam and Epic from their services if the game isn't removed from their stores. I mean, honestly, what's the game store supposed to do? Stand by some indie game that might be objectionable to some people and risk losing hundreds of millions of dollars in a digital payment apocalypse that will ultimately end their business and leave us without access to any games at all? Meanwhile, gamers, the people who actually buy stuff from game stores, just want to sit back and enjoy their game without being lectured about a character in the game having an unrealistic bust size. I mean, it's a gutless power trip. These trillion-dollar titans preach inclusion and wield debanking like a digital guillotine to silence wrongthink. You don't care about ethics. They just care about PR and avoiding the next viral hashtag. They're perfectly happy processing payments for sketchy crypto scams or products made in sweatshops with child labor. But the game with kind of some cheeky dialogue, that's the line in the sand? Seriously? I mean, the hypocrisy is so thick you can cut it with a dull butter knife. And ultimately, the stores have no choice but to cave. Gamers truly deserve freedom from this spineless, activist-fueled financial fascism. Let us buy our games that we want, and if you don't like them, don't buy them. We don't need you micromanaging morality for us. But ultimately, though, I don't blame the snowflake activists that think everything should comply with their shifting ideological whims. Because we've always had those people, and we've always ignored them. Of course, social media has given them a much larger voice. They're still just as crazy. Now, who I truly find at fault here is payment processors. Companies who deny services to people conducting completely legal business should be brought up on charges because ultimately, this is extortion. Payment processors are nothing more than a glorified ATM. It's your job to give people the money we've promised them for the products we're purchasing. It's not your job to decide how we spend our money and on what we spend it on. Please shut up and do your job and let me decide how I spend my money. But anyway, hopefully I won't have to provide the Rockstar launcher with an ID because of bad words in GTA 6. And hopefully credit card companies won't make games like GTA 6 impossible to sell because some butthurt activist thinks everything they don't like is literally Hitler. But don't worry, your computer will probably blue screen anyway. Sorry, I mean black screen or whatever it is this week. But if you've stuck around with me this long, then I bet you'll probably like one of these videos. As always, you guys have a great day.